command and control of Russian forces
Hello.
inside of Russia proper, you would utilize a communication aircraft like the IL-22M, and it looks like it wasn't an AN-2 that was shot down, but an IL-22M communication aircraft, which can kind of explain probably a lot of the mismatch and why we're seeing Russia having a hard time regaining the control in the situation right now in Russia against Wagner.
One monitor has just tweeted that traffic will be restricted in the Kaluga region, and which is not very far from Moscow at all. So it's, yeah.
Mario, if I can just make a quick comment related to what Alex said a little earlier. I think some of the practicalities of you guys may not understand just how Wagner is moving so quick, so fast, and with so many vehicles. My unit alone in Ukraine, we had over 30, pickup trucks. That's a substantial amount of movement, but it's not a substantial amount of manpower. PMC Wagner right now has speed and all
I'm confident. Sorry, I'll give you the mic back. Sorry, Malcolm, but look, I'm confident enough now, based on all the messages I'm getting, to tweet that. I'll read exactly what my tweet says. Sorry, I'll give you the mic right now after Malcolm, and David's been waiting very patiently, so David has to speak afterwards. But I've tweeted it. I'll just pin it above for everyone to see. But I'm pretty confident to state the following. Reports of Wagner forces have entered Moscow Oblast, being 2 hours away from Moscow city. Note, below video is unverified, so there's a video there of them entering Moscow Oblast. And we could not confirm Wagner is actually in Moscow Oblast. However, based on all the reports we're getting, I'm confident tweeting this and stating that this is likely true. We are trying to verify this in the current space. Also, so you're comfortable backing that the tweet that it is likely that Wagner forces are in Moscow Oblast?
Yeah. And it looks like, so again, this is a video of a Russian soldier. It's kind of hard, and somebody just tagged me on it, but I've also seen it that the 217th Guard Paratroop Regiment, there's a soldier from that regiment saying that basically the unit of that Russian military has basically switched side to the Wagner mercenary group, and they're going to fight besides Wagner.
Who's that? Sorry?
So the video claims that it's the 217th Guard Paratroop Regiment. So, but again, it's one soldier who's. I'll share the video right now if I can.
And this is true. How big is this regiment? Just for everyone, I've just pinned above the tweet I've just talked about.
I mean, we're gonna have to.
Go ahead.
It's going to be hard. I would have to do some research and look into it specifically, like how it is. But I mean, it could be a very large element or not. But I think what these videos are showing, though, as Malcolm was alluding to earlier, and a lot of the people were here alluding to, that the only reason, and Alex as well, is the only reason Wagner's having this much success. They have to be having support from elements of the Russian military. That is the only explanation.
Good morning,
they are
everyone.
having support, and this video at least shows, I think, certain elements of the Russian military is supporting Wagner.
Just let me know if there's any sound.
So David,
good morning. Can I break in for a second?
I'm not sure who's speaking. I do. David. So David, Secret. I'm going to give you the mic next because you've been very vocal and you faced. I'll give you credit. You faced a lot of slack for the comments you made earlier, like a lot of slack. And people were requesting for me to remove you from the panel. You stated constantly that the military that exists in Moscow does not have the ability to stop Wagner's advance, and that was many hours ago. And I'm guessing you went to sleep and woke up, and now we're seeing reports of Wagner troops and the convoy entering Moscow Oblast and Putin potentially in St. Petersburg, along with his
Well, some of my contacts are telling me yes, they're confirming that they're in the Moscow Oblast.
Yes. Yeah, I got a lot of flack last night for saying that they could get this.
Can you tell us, Lev, can you tell us who those contacts are or how trustworthy they are? What can you share?
I can't tell you the names, but I'm pretty confident they're inside Moscow.
Not Moscow Oblast, just for the record.
Yeah, but the people I'm speaking to are inside Moscow right now.
And do they know anything about Putin? Is he in Moscow, St. Petersburg? Are people confused, or do we know for sure he's still in the Kremlin?
I'm still making calls. I just got up. So
I would not expect him to be in the Kremlin, considering what you just told me. But please, if you can chat to them about where Putin is, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm going to give David Secrets. I'm going to give you the mic after David E. David Stoich, you've been pretty vocal of all being planned or planned. I'm not sure what your stance is now, but Prigozhin is not going after Putin, and they're communicating and they're going to meet and everything's going to be okay. David, is your stance still the same? And then we'll go to the other David.
Mario, I said an hour ago that Prigozhin is going to be allowed to go to the meeting either inside or outside of Moscow, and we can clearly see that has taken place. If indeed Putin wanted rid of Prigozhin, that 400 numbered convoy would have been neutralized a long time ago. If anyone believes in their right mind that there is no air force ability of the Russian army to take care of a colony heading to Moscow, then you're living in Gaga land. What I've just been told, actually, on a call from Moscow, was that everything will be okay. That Prigozhin will be allowed to make his submission in case to Putin, that he is a patriot to Putin and to Russia. There is no civil war
And then
inside
Putin
Russia.
saying, and then when he said Putin saying everything he said, and Prigozhin saying everything they said, they're attacking each other vehemently, publicly for the last few hours. Is all you're saying? It's all theater.
What you're reading is that it's a simple fact is that Putin is making acknowledgement that there are internal forces within the Ministry of Defense. He did not specifically say Prigozhin et al.
He said Wagner, and Prigozhin is the chief of Wagner.
And
And
others.
and Prigozhin said Putin multiple times.
Oh, he hasn't.
Yes, he has.
Actually,
There's multiple reports. Prigozhin has openly said on more than one occasions, and we've reported it for hours. He did say Putin, and he said Putin is on the wrong side of history. Russia will have a new president. That's Prigozhin saying that.
What Prigozhin has issued on his Wagner Telegram channel, I just posted 5 minutes ago. You will say that is in counter what you have.
When did he say that? So, David, can you pin it above? And when did he say that? Because initially he said that, and then after Putin's speech, he changed his narrative and now started calling Putin directly and going against Putin directly.
So he's an idiot.
He is with Putin. I'm going to say it for the 10th time. I said an hour ago he's going to be allowed to go to Moscow. What are we witnessing? We are witnessing being allowed to go to Moscow.
Well,
so
nice
as Yvonne said, in 2-3 hours' time, we will know what is happening. Because by that stage, he will either be in Moscow talking directly to Putin or through a video conferencing with several allies. What Prigozhin has just stated is that several members of the Ministry of Defense that he hates have now left Moscow. He's calling them, he's actually stated they are running like rats from Moscow. So the action of Prigozhin going to Moscow is working. He is being allowed to go there by Putin. Because if Putin picked up the phone and wanted them eradicated on the highway to Moscow, we would be witnessing carnage. We are not.
Can you pin the tweet where he says is there anything he says where he's supporting Putin? Anything at all in the last couple of hours since Putin's speech? Is there anything Prigozhin said in support of Putin?
You can go to my tweet. I'll post it up in the nest now here in a minute. But if you go to his Telegram channel, it's issuing all his notes. You can read it for yourself. It's all there.
Okay, and that's after. Can you confirm this is after Putin's speech, and this is from Prigozhin directly?
Yes, the last half an hour. This narrative that you're having inside the space.
Can you search?
I was listening
can you please pin it above now? Can you quickly check it?
Before the lounge.
Just give me 30
for the whole day.
Thank you so much. And in the meantime, while you're pinning that,
been going
Austin,
all night. Actually,
I
had it on all night, but I just had it at a very low volume.
Yeah, I would heavily disagree with this notion that Wagner is just kind of being allowed to go to Moscow. I think from the videos we're seeing out of Lipetsk, it seems that barricades are attempted to be manufactured. The videos I'm looking at mostly look like anywhere from like dump trucks to construction equipment, which, if you disable those vehicles on a road, they tend to be quite difficult to remove from there unless you ram a tank into them or something of that notion, or a bulldozer even. I would definitely, like to push back against this idea that this is planned by Putin or anything like that. I think everything that we've seen thus far has been contrary to that narrative, whether it's localized security forces attempting to erect barricades, whether it's messaging from the MOD itself. I think the idea that this is all planned is not.
So Prigozhin released this new statement. It was 4 hours ago, saying that Russia is corrupt because of Putin, and that will destroy everything around us. We're all ready to die. That was just one I'm finding quickly. There's multiple similar statements made against Putin. If someone could be bothered finding them again. But I'm just found one.
Mario, and if those weren't true, then he would have stepped out and said that they weren't true by now, letting this go on this long. I mean, I think Ted's right in the sense that yes, if the Air Force was allowed to go ahead, they would bomb them. But basically arriving at the conclusion that the only reason that's happening is because Putin has said, let this happen, as opposed to potential support from the military or something else, and discounting that without any facts is irresponsible.
That is a valid point. If it's not happening, it's because no order is given. So why is no order given?
Hold on,
I
there's
just think
nothing.
that
So, David, there's nothing in what you've pinned above. Nothing that supports Putin. Doesn't even mention Putin or any support of Putin. There's no link to the comment himself. So you said there's a tweet. You said in the last half an hour he's supporting Putin. Well, what you just read above, he says, understand one thing. We do not mind. We appreciate fighters. In our company, most of the employees consist of combat guys who have served in the authorities, and those who are now serving know perfectly well what attitude to the fighters. We have questions for the Ministry of Defense and officials who cowardly now flee from Moscow. They cannot and do not want to answer to their actions. It's not even men. So you've just sent me a tweet where he mentions no support to Putin, and I've just read out already one, and I'm trying to find more if you want, where he's talking directly. He's directly attacking Putin, and there's more of them as well. Hold on. Right, so I'll find him later. David, secrets QRL. Please, let us know your thoughts. And I'm sure now you'll say, because you were saying it earlier, now you'll probably say with more confidence that you expect Moscow and the Kremlin to fall. And do you expect? Do you think Putin is currently in the Kremlin?
I have no idea about whether he's in the Kremlin. I saw the report about the aircraft leaving, just like everybody else. I got to push back on some things. First of all, they've got 4 dead aircrew right now. 4 dead Air Force aircraft down. A lot of people dead, and so we do have a video of Russian airstrikes. But there's the Wagner forces have Panjshirs. With that radar on, everybody in that part of Russia knows that Wagner has radar guided air defense, the best, and it's the upgraded one. It's the new one.
That's
It's not the old one.
500,000 views in
So
12
anything that
minutes
flies anywhere near that
on that
probably
video that is
second convoy
unverified
is going to get shot
on the
down.
way
We don't know what
into
is in the third, fourth, and fifth
Oblast.
convoys, but that first convoy is probably a recon convoy, all on wheels.
Interesting.
They're not playing. They've made it clear that anything comes around them, they're going to shoot
at
down.
least for the
And the
first 48 hours.
Su-35s that they have around
Everything
Moscow,
is fake,
like I said yesterday or
basically.
last night, this morning,
But
whatever, they're not
here we go.
trained for
And,
dropping
I
bombs
heard
on
the
this. And you got
Chechens were
a
on their
convoy
way, so
intermixed with civilians,
should get spicy.
and you got friendly forces on the ground nearby. You've got pilots going, how am I going to target anything with no forward air traffic controllers on the ground? You got that going on.
I'll let you finish off. I do want to get an update. Is there any updates?
Mario, I just want to provide a quick update. Sorry, and then I'll push it on to David. So, quick update is I'm getting pictures from BNO News. They posted this, and there's pictures that the parts of the main road in St. Petersburg have been blocked, and you can see like dump trucks, etc., blocking the main roads in St. Petersburg at the moment.
So roads being blocked in St. Petersburg. Why would they block roads in St. Petersburg North?
Why? I don't know. Panic is probably the most. To me, it looks like the significant areas are in panic in the Russian
Video is
Federation
also
right now.
being shared by Visegrad 24.
Okay, so and is there any updates on the Moscow Oblast? Because if we had reports about I don't know if it's already half an hour. Let me see when I tweeted. I think it's been.
The Wagner group
so I tweeted about 20 minutes later. I said I would get information 20 minutes later. I tweeted 12 minutes ago, so it's half an hour, and they're 2 hours away from Moscow City. So if these reports are correct, then we are. Then the Wagner forces are about an hour and a half away from Moscow City. Again, that's assuming these reports are correct regarding the Wagner
more
forces
than
being in Moscow
230
Oblast,
roadblocks. I don't
2
know what the
hours away
source of
from
this
the
video
city.
or this photo is.
Would love any updates on that. If anyone has any updates on that, please do just jump in.
in.
Otherwise, Colonel, you are glitching, and I do want to go to Tender. Tender, would love to get your thoughts on what we're seeing so far.
That just made me worse.
Yes, I wanted to answer your question
Timothy
before
Snyder.
why
I
we
love
don't
Timothy
see
Snyder.
the Russian Air Force.
Amazing
And
historian.
it's a very simple question. The command structures have broken down. Where is Gerasimov? AWOL. Where is Shoigu?
Gaining
AWOL.
some
Where is
civilian
Putin?
support. This will be
Gone.
interesting.
Why should any pilot now
I still
fire
kind
any
of think
weaponry?
that Putin and
They are
Frigo
totally
are somehow
scared,
like
paralyzed,
connected
and no
little
one will make
coordinated,
any
but I don't know.
initiative because they don't know what is the comrade doing.
Hi.
It is a total paralyzed state, and I don't expect anything to happen in the next hours except for all the insurgents, and I'm not talking about Wagner. I always hear Wagner. It is not only Wagner. That's an insurgency comprising of all parts of the Russian military. We have Wagner, we have Mobiks, we have regulars, we have Rosgvardia, we have even OMON, we have FSB, we have everyone in this insurgency. Everyone might remember when Wagner was moving into Rostov, and all those OMON goons, which we know from beating up, let me say, the shit out of demonstrators, were just at awe when Wagner was moving in. It was over when Wagner entered Rostov. And now we just see the stones falling. It is over. We will see in the next 3, 4, maybe 8 hours maximum, the troops moving into the Red Square. They will storm it. The people in Moscow will join that. And it doesn't matter if they like Wagner or not. It doesn't matter. It's over for Putin.
But
And
wait,
people have plenty of reasons
I
for
thought
being
Wagner
happy.
only had like
Because the Russian people, they can
25,000
endure everything
troops
except for one thing, and that's
deployed
defeat.
in that
And this is
area,
now a
and that
defeat,
some of those
and
have to
Putin
be
has to
in
pay the price for that. And
freaking
that is what I want to
Ukraine,
say.
So
right?
actually,
They're
Tender, I
not
want to
all
ask
on
you,
their
Tender,
way.
I don't know if you've seen
They
the
can't
statement
possibly
from
all be
the
on their
Belarusian
way.
oppositionist Tikashkava.
And
I always have a
who
hard time.
thinks
The
the Chechens are
Belarusian
going to be like,
opposition leader
Kadyrov's
in
going to get there
exile.
and go,
We're seeing a lot of
Rigo, how you
reporting also
doing,
now
my
from
drug,
Belarus,
my drug,
in which opposition figures and then in
my
exile
drug,
and then pro
дорогие,
Ukrainian
дорогие,
Belarusian fighters
дорогие
basically now
человек.
calling for arms to topple not only the Lukashenko regime but to
How much you
expel
want to
Russian
bet
forces from
that
Belarus.
Kadyrov and Frigo
Do
are
you
like,
believe that that with the situation currently going on in Russia right now,
whoops,
that Belarus is probably a more precarious position?
I absolutely believe that the
Moscow.
revolution will also go to Belarus, because Belarus was effectively an
Isn't it
occupied
interesting?
land. It
Under
was not
Moscow,
a
this guy comes up.
self-sufficient dictatorship. It had to
Hey
rely on
you, how
Putin.
you doing?
Lukashenko would have been long gone without Putin, and with Putin
Lukashenko.
gone, he will be gone too, if he's not already gone. Some people still believe he's in Turkey. That sounds for me very, very realistic. But in the end, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter if the revolution in Belarus comes from the army
I think I'm
or
a
from
little high.
politicians or from the civilian
It's been a rough
society. It will
morning.
happen eventually. And the Belarus will not take up the fight. It will be over there as soon as it will be over in Moscow. That will be a domino.
I don't. Okay, so this is not a
Hey,
good
Tender,
guy.
sorry,
All right,
Mike.
just so we're all very
Sort of quick
clear, which I know
update. Putin has
this
signed a
Mark.
law
He's not a
for
good.
convicted
This
conscripts
is
to
not the
serve
guy
under a
you want
contract.
to
So he's going to, unless
for.
they've done a very serious crime, he's going to start releasing people from prison. Convicts may be released ahead of schedule, signing a contract to serve in the
I
armed
don't know what
forces.
groups he's
They'll be
means.
given legal guarantees and
So you
grounds
have
for
to take
exemption from
anything with a
criminal
grain of salt
liability
easily.
if they work
You've
for the
got
armed
some
forces.
real
And the Belarus
weird ass people in
Svetlana
this space.
Tikhanovska that you were talking about, she's called for the closing of the border
But
between
Lev
Russia and
Partis is in
Belarus,
there, and he's on
as
the
well as
phone with
expelling
on
Russian troops
Moscow.
from the
So
country
I think
with the
some of the
forces of
stuff
the
he
Belarus.
says is
So she's going to use
more
the army to
interesting
expel
than
the
not.
Russian troops from the country. That's what she's saying. And she created an operational headquarter and has asked for help
I think
from
this is
Kalinovsky
Khaleesi. I
Regiment,
don't
which
know
was
what
fighting
she's
in Ukraine.
Hitler on
So can
ice.
I just got something else to share. I guess we're starting to get the first video. Possibly again, this is
Easily.
just breaking, so no way of confirming
Oh
right
my
now.
god.
But the
I need
tweet
all the
says
coup
Wagner
jokes.
and Rostov disarms Kadyrovs and take them
All the
prisoners.
coup
What you see in the
jokes.
video, and I'll share it up in
Let's
the group
see,
chat, Mario.
this guy's an
Is there's
idiot.
a civilian
This
vehicle
guy's
with
an
the Z
idiot.
symbol of the Russian military, and you
Let's
can see a
see.
couple heavily armed, what appears to be Wagner forces
She's an
surrounding
op.
what appears to be men carrying
He's an
in
idiot.
that vehicle and
Total
taking them
idiot.
prisoner. So
This
I'll
guy's
share
a
it there to see
total
if this
idiot.
is the first indication of like Kadyrov and Wagner forces encountering
Malcolm's
itself in
great. He hasn't
Rostov,
said much this
and
morning.
possibly Wagner just being ahead right now.
I want to
Just a
know if
heads
the
up,
other guy's in
also,
here.
so there's, I might need to do something that can reset the space. If the space crashes
This
just for
guy's
everyone,
weird.
we'll restart it relatively
He's
quickly.
really weird. He's into
Otherwise,
AI.
Alex
Like,
and Colonel,
really.
I will not be able to hear them. I know this glitch well. So
These are a bunch of
so
crypto
if they speak, I will
bots.
not be able to hear them also. So you'll need
Look
to
at
moderate if
Borde.
Alex or Colonel speak. I
Jesus.
can hear
Oh,
everyone else.
Sabatini.
Any new
He's a
speakers that
real
join will
fucking
probably have the
idiot.
same glitch. I will not be
Or
able to
no,
hear
that's
them.
Antonio
So
Sabato.
I've
That was
also
Sabatini.
updated.
He's also an
We're
idiot.
getting more sources that
This guy's an idiot.
the Central Election Commission also of the Russian Federation supports the president
right,
and is ready
dude.
to ensure
Get
the
over
implementation
yourself.
of the electoral rights of citizens during the elections. Nothing too important there. But we are getting more reports of Wagner forces
I
in
don't trust
Moscow
her
Oblast.
as far as I can throw her, and I can't throw her.
So I just wanted to update that.
If
give
I
the mic
can,
to Patrick.
never mind. Mario can hear me.
Patrick?
Oh, thanks, Mario. Just add on to something Tender said.
This guy's kind of.
Not only do you
I
have
don't
to
know
have,
about this guy.
command cohesion
He
in
seems
order
a
to
little
pull off an
panicky.
airstrike, You have to find politically reliable pilots who are also
And this
dedicated
guy,
enough to the regime to risk
I'm not
serious
buying
civilian
any of it.
casualties. Because as
I am
several
not
of us have
buying
pointed out,
any of it.
Wagner has air defense sufficient. You're going to have to fly very high and drop a lot of bombs in the hopes of hitting something. And to do that, you're going to have to risk hitting a lot of civilians. So you got to find a pilot willing to do that. And you got to find a pilot who isn't going to turn around and drop that payload wherever you are if you're Putin. And how do you find them? How do you know who's reliable? I'm sure that thought is running through their heads right now. Who do we have that we can reliably entrust with a lot of firepower and then send them out in the field?
Oops, the tweet doesn't exist.
And I think that is probably a sticking point, assuming that they have the command links that Tendar was
like
referring to. And if
29
they don't,
seconds
then they really
ago.
are screwed.
What in the hell is going on in Moscow? I just think that's funny the way it's
Also,
put.
if you could take over
It's not
moderating
funny,
just for 2
but...
seconds, I'll verify something.
Although
I'd love to go to
I have
Malcolm and then Colonel. Go ahead, Malcolm, and also please do take over.
Video of downtown Moscow that's supposed to be
Yeah,
live.
that was a very good point about about Russian Air Force command and control. Right now, the biggest problem that I think many of the non-professional watchers here are seeing is they don't understand why it's happening.
Let me just
Things
switch
are
tabs for a
happening.
second and
They
give
are
you a view
happening
of
like a heart
Moscow
that's in the middle of a heart attack.
currently.
They're fibrillating.
Hopefully I don't screw this up. But that's what's happening in Moscow right now. At least this part of Moscow, which I can't remember. I think that is Moscow. Is that MGU? I think the university. So it's kind of the southern part of Moscow. I think this is FSB, but I think this is FSB headquarters, but I could be wrong about that. Not really sure what view this is. I like this view of Moscow skyline amid Romania, because that's important. All right, let me go back to our space. Sorry about that.
FSB, he
Okay,
has some
there we go.
MVD, and he has
Who Malcolm
essentially
speaking?
what military ceremonial forces are in the Moscow district to stop a determined force. I've fought PMC Wagner in Kharkiv province. These guys know what they're doing now. They're combat experienced. And I think that they are pulling their 1917 2.0. But again, once the real fighting starts with the Kadyrovskis and the Russians, I'm sorry to say it, we will be in a civil war. It has gone beyond a mutiny now.
All right,
Forces are choosing
so I will, Von, I would
Ooh,
like you to push back on this, but before doing
that's
so, I'm going to get
interesting,
you, Von, to
Malcolm.
push back and just balance it out before we go to Colonel. Just for the audience, what I'll do now is I'll be resetting something to make sure that the space doesn't crash.
Yes,
While I
I
reset
think
this, the
there's
space may crash. We'll
time
start
to
it again
consider
immediately. It's been going on for like
who the
15, 20 hours
practical
without crashing, which is incredible
targets
for
are
such
of
a
the
big
puns.
audience.
There's probably
Just
multiple.
shows space is getting better and better.
Probably
But
multiple.
so I'll be doing that now. Also, and
Hi
Von, are you
Al,
there,
how are
guys?
you?
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
here. I got
Also,
it.
so space is yours while I do this. And again, for everyone, if the space crashes,
Mario has to
we'll
poop.
be starting it immediately after. So just make sure you're on my profile. So everyone, just open my
Yes,
profile so you can
Mario.
see when your new space starts.
No,
If
I don't
this
want
crashes,
to.
it may not. Also, the mic is yours. I'll be back.
It crashes
Colonel,
and
go
make
ahead.
me sad.
Yeah. So look, I'm going to push back a little bit on Patrick, right? Because I would argue that the problem that you have is not that there's aviators willing to be able to support this effort. It's an issue of it takes you usually about 12 hours to plan a good strike mission, right? And so you've got a 12-hour planning issue. You don't have a target set really because the thing keeps moving. That this convoy keeps moving. It's not like it's a building where you can put a DIMPI or designated mission point impact onto something, and on top of that you're lacking for orders. Your maintainers are a little bit distraught, and then you've also got crew rest issues for the
Beware
crew.
the
So you'd
hot
need a mission
takes.
planning
I mean, I
team.
have plenty of
You'd
them, right?
need
But
no
beware the hot
kidding, really
takes.
good mission planning packets. Then you'd actually have
Oh, this
someone
one's
actually do
funny
the
though.
briefing,
Yeah,
and
everyone's
then the
making
guys
fun
stuck
of
to the
this.
jet. This
Kyiv will
isn't.
fall in
I mean,
3 days.
it's not like the
Moscow will
days of
fall
World
in
War
3
II where
days.
you just
May
run up
fall
to
in
the
3 days.
airplane and at 200, 250 knots actually just kind of
Oh,
fly up and down the road
Erdogan.
and find
What is
someone.
Erdogan doing?
There's a lot more that goes into planning
Erdogan's going to
for
try and insert
MiG-29 or
himself as
Su-27.
the great
On the positive
negotiator, the
side, though,
great
I will say, there's not a lot of
uniter.
GPS jamming going on deep in
That
the heart of
motherfucker.
Russia. So
I'm
if
going to
they
pick your
can
nose.
find, Prigozhin's guys, and they are stopped somewhere and they're not moving, precision-guided weapons are probably going to be very effective against them.
Hey, so sorry, Colonel. That's a great point. I do want to provide an update. It looks like the Kremlin is considering designating Wagner as an extremist and terrorist organization. So that I think, Mario, that kind of just if we're getting a lot of these reports. I think that I don't think there's any desire anybody to talk right now.
Yeah. Look, I just want to say, so who was just Colonel? You're talking about the use of precision weapons by the Kremlin, by Russian forces. Why hasn't that happened already then?
Yeah, so that whether are you talking once from an aircraft or from ground to ground?
The ones you're referring to, remember, I had to go offline and fix the issue, and we're fixed. We're back to normal. We didn't crash, but go ahead.
The air to ground issue is there's a lot of mission planning that goes into this, right? It's not World War II where guys can just run out to a B-51 Mustang and light it up and fly up another road at 250 miles an hour.
Don't you
When
be
you're flying
fucking
500
talking
miles
about
an
something
hour
you don't know
and you're
anything
looking
about.
for like my IP to target run, I'm looking for visual impacts. I mean, there's a lot of mission planning that goes into flying, Su-27s, Su-35s, MiG-29s. This just doesn't happen automatic. Not to mention to spin up and prep the jet and get the weapons hung and get them hung and then checked correctly and getting green lights on all of the indicators. Again, it takes a very long time to make those things happen. Most of the time, it takes so long to actually do mission planning. You actually have a mission planning team of pilots that, while the other pilots are sleeping, they're planning, and then the pilots who wake up and then come in will actually get briefed by the pilots who did the mission planning and then take off and go fly, because there's just too much that goes into it. The trail is really long. I'll give you one last data point. From the time that a commander in the United States Air Force or NATO says, I want to have X impact in the battle space, from his indication to the actual strike is 72 hours. So in other words, the U.S. military works on a 72-hour air tasking order cycle. Right, so that it doesn't happen overnight. So speed right now is where Goshen's been. The faster he can get to Moscow and get his guys bedded down and hidden, he's far less exposed to aircraft striking him. Whether that changes, if he beds down and slows, or if these guys can change protocol, I don't know. Maybe they can, but
Let's see what the
official
president of Russia can't say. Let's see.
I appreciate that update. Is there anything new from your end, all source, before I check my sources? I've just fixed the issue now, so we're all good to continue the show.
So I think no. I mean, right now nothing, and I think we're trying to get confirmation of
social
more video from Wagner
losers.
in Moscow Blast, and then again, just the first video coming out of Chechen. Reportedly, it's really hard to really say decisively if that's the case, but of Chechen forces being detained by Wagner in Rostov. Because
how powerful are the Chechen forces? I know nothing about their capabilities and their equipment.
Oh, really,
so
Mario?
forces,
Something tells me you know a little bit.
Kind of the nickname they are given is they're called the TikTok brigades. And the reason why they're called the TikTok brigades is you see them like very well equipped, and then they do videos and they upload it on TikTok to make them seem very, let's say, badass and masculine. But from a military point of view, it makes absolutely no sense, and they're uploaded for propaganda purposes. So they're called the TikTok brigades. It's kind of like just to kind of poke fun of them.
Oh, easily. This
they
is
do
definitely
fight. They are a military force. They're key of maintaining stability for Kadyrov inside of Chechnya. But I guess the question is, once we start seeing Kadyrov and Wagner, two of the most powerful military formations that are kind of like
hopefully
quote
nobody's
unquote,
got any buttons.
not necessarily part of the Russian MOD, etc. And I say that loosely, by the way.
Hopefully
once
this is a
if they actually start fighting, I guess we'll see who's on top and who's powerful. But I think Wagner has demonstrated themselves a lot more in combat, especially in Bakhmut, than Kadyrov has.
And actually
and yeah, we're seeing videos of clashes, again, unconfirmed videos of clashes. War Monitor posted it. Not clashes, just confronting each other, beating each other, but there's no shooting at all. I don't know who's beating who. We are seeing a whole convoy of Chechen troops in the suburbs of Rostov. That was 6 minutes ago. War Monitors, who doesn't sleep either, posted it. We also have 30 minutes ago, we mentioned parts of the main road in St. Petersburg have been blocked. You did mention that also. So about 30 minutes ago, Dmitry did post a video 23 minutes ago showing a member of the Russian 217th Regiment switching to Prigozhin's side. But obviously, this is unconfirmed. So I would not take that too seriously.
I want to know what Eric Prince is doing this morning.
So we got an update from
That's what I
Rybar,
want
per
to know.
reports, Wagner forces reached
I want
Yelets,
to know who the oligarchs are
Lipetsk
backing.
Oblast, roughly 350 kilometers from Moscow. Rybar claims
I
that the
want to
Wagner
know what
column includes anywhere from
Deripaska's
50 to
thinking.
400 pieces of equipment and vehicles. That was 2 hours ago. Oh shit, I thought that was just now. Austin Technical went to sleep apparently. That was 2 hours ago because now we're talking
Well,
about
no,
Moscow
they're
Oblast.
kind of like
Has there
giving
been
each other
any
high
other sources or
fives.
any other reports?
I
Lev,
think
have you spoken to anyone else?
hot man.
Actually,
I
your
think they're
sources,
more in
Lev,
the
have
high
they talked
five
about if Putin is still in
phase of the
Kremlin
operation.
or he's in St. Petersburg or unknown? Lev, are you there before going to Alex? Go ahead, Alex. In the Department of the reports,
I think
Galagunet says, in the Department of the
never changes
FSB in
his
Moscow and the Moscow
energy
region,
level.
measures are being taken to prepare for the introduction of a
How do
curfew
you
in the
do
capital.
24 hours?
That's just another quick update that just came in now. But I'll go to Alex. Alex, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. A couple of
Yeah.
points, I think, on what was made earlier. I believe Khaleesi read out a report about Putin signing a law allowing convicted criminals, I think, to serve in the armed forces there. So, I mean, that says one of two things, or possibly both, right? Are they trying to lure Wagner fighters with criminal records across to come fight for the Department of Defense or the Ministry of Defense
Wow,
if they're
that's some pretty big
disaffected for
chest
some
there,
reason?
honey.
I'm sorry.
Or is the
Alex actually
situation?
speaking? Because I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah. So we have Alex speaking. Yep. Go ahead, continue, Alex. I'll fix it for you. Also, give me a sec.
No problem. Thanks. Do you want me to wait?
No, continue. Go ahead.
Okay.
Everyone else can hear you.
So
It would
the
be
second
stupid
piece
if
is,
someone
it's
owned
also
your
not
neighboring
indicative of things going
country, but
particularly
the
well if you're then
Clintons
going to have to
go,
conscript
I'll be
prisoners to
getting
come
one
to your
hell of a
defense at this
jam,
point.
right?
Again, logistics and resupply
No,
and
I
things
don't think so
aside, and
either,
whatever support
obviously.
that
But
Prigozhin gets or doesn't get, just put that aside for a second, right?
I'm kind of
When we talk
curious
about the
which
forces
part
that
of
are
this is
here, if we're talking
choreographed
about
and which
Russian
part of
National
it
Guard
isn't.
troops who haven't
Let's put
spent
it
any
that way.
time in
That's
combat
where I'm at right now.
in Ukraine against probably some of the most combat-hardened forces
Part of it feels very
that the
Russian,
Russians have
and
had
part of it
after
feels very
Bakhmut,
off the
and everyone that
rails.
survived, seen some pretty serious combat.
Not that
As we like to say, after years and
being
years of
Russian
20
isn't
years
off
of
the
war,
rails,
reps matter,
but
right? And the Wagner
usually
forces
less
have a
so.
lot of experience that a lot of these young conscripted troops or National Guard forces who have never seen combat don't have. And so, just in terms of a force-to-force, makeup, that's what we're looking at. Never mind Russian propaganda that's been coming out, for months, over the last year, hyping up the Wagner capabilities, and the intended target audience was obviously the Ukrainians to scare them about what was
Okay,
coming.
22 minutes
But the
ago.
unintended target audience would also be the Russian military who saw the same reports. And so now you've got a year of that propaganda in their minds after
22
some of the
minutes
most
ago,
hardened
breaking
combat
Putin
forces have
allegedly has
turned and are
fled
now headed inside
Moscow.
Russia.
Oh, really?
So we'll see where it
Okay,
goes.
I hadn't heard that. Wagner Group is a report of Wagner.
So we do have just a bit more updates here.
Civil War.
Let me
I
just
don't think
verify it
that.
briefly.
That
In the
seems kind of
meantime,
dumb.
I want to go
I mean,
to.
that
Oh,
seems
actually, let me
very
fix it for you, all
reactionary
source.
to me.
But I do want to go to
Very reactionary.
Von. I would love to get your thoughts on
I
the
don't know.
developments we're
That
seeing
seems
so far. Just a quick update,
little
and then
too
all
much.
source. Right after Von, I want you to just give
bridge too
a
far.
recap of everything we know so far. It's been about an hour or
I
two. We haven't given a recap. Von, go ahead.
Chechen forces has
Von, are
been
you there before the
detailed
recap?
in Rostov by the Wagner Group.
All right. So while waiting for Von, all source, are you there?
I am here.
All source, can we get a recap on
alone.
what we know so far?
Yeah, so quick summary of what
I have
the events of
sympathy
the
with
last 24
Putin.
hours that it seems pretty
Do
crazy that we're
you?
seeing right now
I'm
is that
laughing, and we laugh.
so tensions between Wagner,
Oh
the
boy.
leaders
Okay, this is
Prigozhin,
so
and
simpy. It's
the
just
Russian military
sympathy.
Ministry of Defense leadership, specifically
Simply.
Shoigu, the Minister of Defense, and Gerasimov,
Let's see what's
the
going
chairman of the
on with
Russian
the
General
real
Staff, have been increasing for a while now.
following.
Yesterday,
Freaked out Russia shot
Prigozhin claimed that the Russian military struck a Wagner camp in the Luhansk Oblast, and Prigozhin used that as an excuse to basically declare war
28
on
minutes
Gerasimov and
ago.
Shoigu of the Russian Ministry of Defense.
I don't know this
And I think it's
account.
important to highlight that video, a lot of people speculate that it was fake, that it was a false flag, that it did not happen. Regardless if it actually happened or not, if the Russian military actually
Don't
struck
really know
Luhansk or
who
if it
he
was a
is.
false flag, Prigozhin
Apparently,
absolutely used this to launch basically an armed rebellion, as the Russian state media has termed this, against the Russian
units have
military.
taken up positions on the
And
Kashirski
shortly after
highway,
that,
which
after a
leads
couple
south
hours,
from the
we
city.
got
Another pencil
reports of Wagner entered
picture.
Rostov Nodov, which is in southern Russia. Rostov Nodov is significant because it is the headquarters of the Russian military Southern Military District, as well as the command center for all of Russia's military operations.
Where is this?
In Ukraine. And so when later
there's
on,
Lomonosov. Okay.
Wagner then managed.
There's the airport.
Not only did they seize Rostov,
Oh,
but then we saw a video of Prigozhin able to then enter the military headquarters of Russia's operation in Ukraine, where he was interrogating and questioning a couple of Russian general officers. Clearly, it looked like that was not a friendly conversation. Those Russian generals were, for all intents and purposes, prisoners of Prigozhin, and Prigozhin claimed unemphatically that if Gerasimov and Shoigu do not meet him, he will march to Moscow. We did see prior to that a couple of videos of Russian generals imploring Prigozhin to stop his actions, to go back, to deal things more civically and to not use force to achieve his objective. Prigozhin completely ignored it. After that video came out, the Russian generals basically captured by Prigozhin. We saw Putin go on Russian state media, calling Wagner basically traitors, that
Oh,
that
how
Wagner stabbed
interesting. David Man
Russia
on
on the
Fire on
back,
Spotman's
that this is
phone.
an armed rebellion, and that they will be dealt with
It is
accordingly.
quite karmic, isn't it?
Since then, what
Quite.
we've seen consistently, although is
Yeah,
some
no,
fighting, but
there's
not
a
as
lot of
heavy as
people
many
with
people would
FOMO right
suspect.
now, isn't
3
there?
Russian
There's a
helicopters
lot of
were
people
shot
with
down, and then
FOMO.
later on, we also saw a report of a Russian communication plane, an IL-22 Mike M, got shot down. Since then, a Wagner convoy has been moving north from Rosanov, seizing other cities and towns and operating freely across a couple of Russian oblasts up to Moscow. I think that's important to note and highlight, though, that we don't have an exact figure of how many Russian Wagner forces are doing these operations. It is very hard to tell. We see numbers thrown around to a couple of battalions, maybe that's a couple of thousand Wagner soldiers. But really, from the Russian side, it looks like a lot of the military is in Ukraine, unable to stop them. And more importantly, we're getting more and more reports of Russian military units switching sides and joining Wagner at this moment. Just recently, within the last 30 minutes, we got the first reports and videos of Wagner entering the Moscow Oblast, which is the state, not Moscow city proper, but at least the Moscow
Hey,
Oblast, which is
Muskie, how are
2 hours
you?
from the
And we
city
haven't been able to
south of
100%
Moscow.
verify this, but
Welcome.
we just got an
Correct.
increasing number of reports, and that
Correct.
news would not
We're
support,
just
would not
listening
surprise
to
us.
a little bit
Continue.
It
of
would not surprise
history
us. It
in the
matches everything else we've been seeing of things that have been
making.
geoconfirmed, and I think we'll continue to check if a lot of these videos have been geoconfirmed. And lastly,
Coffee
we
and
got reports
Coup
of
with
Chechen forces.
Lolo.
Kadyrov,
Coffee.
the
That's a
leader of the
really good
Chechnya,
title. I'm
basically
gonna call
called
it that.
Prigozhin a
Is that
traitor,
in poor
and he was going to
taste?
deploy his forces
Probably,
against
huh? A little
Wagner and
coffee and
Rosanov. We're
coup.
getting a
A
lot
little
of
coup
videos
with my
of Chechen
coffee.
formations operating near Rosanov. Right
Little
now, we got an unconfirmed video of
little
the claim that Wagner
with
managed to
our
capture a couple of Chechen fighters. But that claim of the video that was captured, that what's
coffee.
unconfirmed is that the people that were captured by Wagner are Chechen fighters. But we do expect Kadyrov's forces and
Here
Chechen
we go.
forces to imminently escalate
There
to
we
an
go.
armed conflict or